What's up, everyone? Welcome back. If you're an Apple CarPlay user like us, then every major iOS update is always exciting because it usually means our in-car experience is about to get a little better. And honestly, iOS 27 might be one of the more interesting CarPlay updates we've seen in a while. At first glance, it doesn't look like a massive redesign, but once we started digging deeper, we realized Apple has added quite a few meaningful upgrades, some long overdue quality of life improvements, and even a couple of features we honestly didn't expect to see this year. So today, we're breaking down every new feature, every hidden change, and whether these updates actually matter in day-to-day driving. Let's get right into it. The biggest addition this year is definitely Siri AI. Apple is finally bringing its new conversational AI experience into CarPlay, and this could completely change how we interact with our cars. Now, there is one important thing to mention before we get too excited. The full Siri AI experience depends on your iPhone. The more advanced Apple Intelligence features are limited to newer devices, particularly the iPhone 15 Pro and newer models, while some of the deeper AI capabilities require even more recent hardware. So not every iPhone will get the exact same experience. But if your phone supports Siri AI, that experience carries directly into CarPlay. Visually, Siri also gets a fresh look. Instead of the old Siri animation taking over the display, we now get the glowing orb interface that sits at the bottom of the screen and keeps the rest of the interface visible. It feels much less intrusive and a lot more modern. But the real improvement is how conversational Siri has become. Previously, using Siri in the car mostly meant issuing simple commands like making calls, sending texts, or opening navigation. Now you can actually have back-and-forth conversations with it. You can ask follow-up questions, request multiple actions at once, and even have casual conversations if you want to. It feels much closer to the AI assistants we're starting to see in vehicles from brands like Tesla and Rivian. Another really cool part is conversation syncing. If you start talking to Siri while driving and then leave the car, you can continue that same conversation on your iPhone later. Everything stays connected across devices, which makes the experience feel much more seamless. Now, let's talk about one feature that genuinely surprised us. Video apps are finally coming to Apple CarPlay. This is something CarPlay users have wanted for years. Previously, Apple only allowed limited video playback through AirPlay on a handful of supported vehicles, but with iOS 27, developers can now create dedicated CarPlay video apps. That means we could eventually see native apps like YouTube, Netflix, or other streaming services directly inside CarPlay. Of course, there are a few catches here. For safety reasons, video playback only works when the vehicle is parked. There's no way around that. Also, automakers have to enable support for these apps in their vehicles, so availability may vary depending on your car. Still, this is a huge deal. Think about road trips, EV charging stops, waiting to pick someone up at the airport, or just sitting in the car during your lunch break. Having proper video apps on your infotainment screen suddenly makes CarPlay feel much more like the full infotainment systems we see in modern EVs. Moving on, Apple also refreshed the overall look of CarPlay. We're getting new wallpapers and additional customization options that align with the latest iOS design language. There are around a dozen new wallpapers and updated visual elements that make CarPlay feel a little more modern and personalized. It also feels smoother and more fluid, matching the newer iPhone experience. It's not a huge feature on paper, but once you start using it, the interface simply feels more polished. Now, here's another update we've wanted for a very long time. Apple finally added media scrubbing. Believe it or not, for years you couldn't simply drag the progress bar on a song or podcast in CarPlay. If you wanted to skip to a certain part of a podcast or replay your favorite section of a song, you basically had to use your phone. With iOS 27, if your vehicle has a touchscreen, you can finally scrub through songs and podcasts directly on the CarPlay screen. Honestly, it feels crazy that it took this long to arrive, but we're very happy it's finally here. Apple also introduced a new mini media player. Previously, if you wanted to control your music, you often had to jump back into the full Now Playing screen. Now, a compact player appears in the top corner of the display, allowing quick access to playback controls while keeping the rest of your apps visible. It's a small change, but one that makes multitasking inside CarPlay much easier. Another thing we noticed is that Apple seems to be taking inspiration from some of the more advanced EV interfaces out there. CarPlay is gradually becoming more interactive and less dependent on constantly switching between full-screen apps. The experience feels cleaner and more intuitive than before. There are also some hidden improvements that may not get as much attention. For example, app thumbnails and content previews are now larger and more interactive. The system feels slightly more responsive and transitions between screens appear smoother. These are the kinds of little changes that don't show up in the marketing materials, but make daily use feel more refined. As with every major update, there are still some things to keep in mind. First, some features depend entirely on your vehicle manufacturer. Just because iOS 27 supports something doesn't automatically mean your car will. Second, Siri AI features require compatible hardware. If you're using an older iPhone, you'll still get many of the visual improvements and interface changes, but some of the deeper AI capabilities may be limited. And finally, since iOS 27 is currently in a beta, some users have reported occasional bugs and temporary glitches within CarPlay, which is pretty normal for early software releases. We expect most of these issues to be ironed out before the final public release. So, when we step back and look at the bigger picture, iOS 27 may not be the most dramatic CarPlay update ever, but it feels like one of the most practical ones. Siri is becoming genuinely useful. Video apps finally make the infotainment screen more versatile. Music controls are smarter, scrubbing finally arrives after years of waiting, and the whole interface simply feels cleaner and more polished. It's the kind of update where no single feature completely changes the experience, but when you add everything together, CarPlay feels noticeably more mature. And honestly, that's exactly what we want from Apple CarPlay. We don't necessarily need flashy gimmicks, we just want the system to become smarter, easier to use, and more capable every year. That was our breakdown of every new feature and hidden change coming to Apple CarPlay with iOS 27. Which feature are you most excited about? Is it the new Siri AI, the long-awaited video apps, or finally being able to scrub through your music? Let us know down in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, because we'll be testing these features ourselves as soon as we get our hands on the final release. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.